Hello, we are back with Himatsubushi, aka the crime drama arc. Uh, Last time, whatever. I guess it might be a little loud for me, but I didn't actually change it. I didn't change the sound settings. My headphones might be a little loud right now. But we're back. Last time we took a tour with Oishi. Got a lay of the land a bit, looking at Hinamiza in the past with its blockades and its barricades, being obviously super on guard during this troubling time. But I think the more important point is we struck a deal with Oishi's, and we'll get to meet his informant that's inside the village, so this should be very interesting depending on who it is. I think the obvious answer is Takano, possibly Tomotaki. Another out there answer would be like Shion. Even I guess it's kind of unlikely because she would be a little kid, but that's just going on the fact that she was, well, according to her and what we know, she wasn't too into the village's culture and stuff. So, I don't know, maybe she doesn't care as much, though maybe that's too much of a long shot. So we do have 4 clues. I kind of stopped because we were running out of time, so we'll go over them first and jump into chapter 2. Phone call with Yuki. I don't know, Yuki. Oh, Yuki's Akasaka's wife. Of course. We're informing her that we're gonna miss the birth. Sadly. Whenever I headed out on an assignment, she would ask where. Not just Yuki, but anybody would have asked the same question. If it was a cold place, she would urge me to pack a thick jacket. If it was far, she'd warn me to be careful on the drive over. It was just a normal, everyday concern that led to asking such an obvious thing. I felt sad that I couldn't answer such a run-of-the-mill question. Yuki, you're talking before the lines are popping up. Control yourself.
すまん、ユキ。
あなたはいつの頃からすぐに謝られるようになったんでしょう。今のお仕事に疲れた最初はあれだけはつらつと充実していらっしゃったのに。
Wow, this song just like 180'd the mood of the scene completely. Kinda like it. It's such a happy song. Even though when you first started your job, you were all gung-ho about it. Yuki, you're overreading. Yuki laughed as though she had realized something. At times like this, Yuki had the magical power to see right through me. Are you sure it's Yuki's power? Because Keiichi has the same problem of people seeing right through him. It might be a protagonist power. Or is it a curse? Guys, what is this hint? Is it because it's a hint? People are just overreading every line? Okay, we're gonna actually try to match it.
今、ユキエの頭に小悪魔の角がにょっきりと生えているのが目に浮かぶよ。君は昔から。
はぐらかさない。私に構ってもらえなくて寂しいって。あなたが尻尾を振っている音が受話器を通しても聞こえてきますよ。
This side of Yuki wasn't something you could guess existed from seeing her usual modest behavior, and it was something that she didn't know to She didn't show to anybody else but me. Normally I'd poke her to hide my embarrassment and bring an end to the conversation, but I couldn't do that over the phone. Of course, Yuki was clever. She was teasing me because of that.
あなたを困らせるのがこんなに楽しいと気づいたのはいつからだったでしょうね。
そろそろ許してくれよ。とにかく君の元気な声が聞けてよかった。
そうでしょ。元気になれましたか？
I had called Yuki to keep her from feeling lonely when she was by herself in the hospital room. Of course, that was nothing more than a pretense that I, being shy, had come up with. It seemed that Yuki had long since seen through that act.
また電話をしてくださいな。私がダメな時はお父さんが相手をしてくれるでしょう。もっともお父さんが相手ではあなたのことだから電話先でも直立不動で喋っていそう。
For a while longer, Yuki kept teasing me without letting me end the call. Like I said before, Akasaka's a good guy. Hopefully doesn't get corrupted from this. They're a cute couple. Next hint, a record of opening remarks. Is this an info dump? It is. Documents usually are more handy for hints. Chairman, members of the Etsets party, congratulations are due as we are celebrating 25 years since our founding. These past 25 years have seen much growth in the blank prefecture. The once quiet scenery of nothing but fields now has seen the opening of a new stop for the bullet train. And with the development of the highway, we've seen the rebirth of a modern city bursting with youthful energy. We've reaped the benefits of new businesses and industry. And with the special reverence of the residents of Blank Prefecture have for time-honored traditions, history and culture, business and industry, with these ideals in harmony, they have accomplished in growing their city into one of Japan's firemost metropolises. Of course, the development of Blank Prefecture could not have happened without the growth of the Blank Party. We are resolved to see every one of our campaign promises to fruition, reaching our targets definitely and expendedly, like arrows fired from a bow. With these arrows as fundamental bases of the Blank Party, our members have sought to pierce the obstructions preventing the happiness of the residents of the Blank Prefecture. But I do believe that everybody here is unlike an ordinary arrow. While being as unfaltering and straightforward, we have not neglected in seeking solutions that conform to the current day and age while also keeping an eye on the future. An arrow once loosed can only fly to its destination. Everyone here, however, is no simple arrow. Even once loosed on the bow, without neglecting our studies, while employing new methods, and implementing more effective and flexible ideas, thus being able to change trajectories mid-flight, we are magical arrows. The modern age marches ever forward. Sometimes it marches faster than the time taken from planning to execution. The following part was not in the script. It is thought to have been ad-libbed by the minister. For example, there have recently been numerous problems with the Hinamizawa power plant project. Rather than forcing through the project solely because it was decided upon by the government, it is necessary to reflect on and adjust the ever-changing needs of the residents, the region, and the next generation. The protests by local residents that surround the Hinamizawa Dam. These are also the will of the people of the Blank Prefecture. If you feel that there's no need to listen because the project has already been finalized, then you do nothing more than shed a poor light on Japan's post-war democracy. The following is as per the scripts. For For lasting happiness of the citizens of Japan and the residents of Blaine Prefecture, please consider these policies thoroughly. I believe, however, we have all gained something from the flexibility and the foresight of the Blank Party. I've taken much of your time. However, allow me to say the following to celebrate the 25th anniversary of our founding. Chairman Blank, members of the Blank Party in attendance, thank you very much for today. From the opening remarks of the Blank Party Prefectural Forum and the 25th anniversary celebration. I do not exactly know what that means. I thought it was going to be like for the Sonozaki group, but it doesn't seem so. Like maybe that person is from the Sonozaki group, the person speaking. But obviously the party as a whole is not. That's probably just the party in power for government. And that was one of the members talking about it. But it said they were only constructed for 25 years. And I don't think we have any relation to 25 years from any hint I've noted, so let's go. Gears, I didn't read that. Gears and Fire Truck something. We'll reread it after. The world is filled with people blessed with relationships. Of course, that doesn't mean that everyone is connected to each other. It's obvious that the other side of the planet there are people laughing and crying who can't possibly have an effect on you. However, in the extremely limited community of the neighborhood, that sort of connection is just a matter of fact. It is quite possible that a single remarkable event could have massive consequences inside a small community. If you were to increase that in scale, a perfect stranger on the other side of the globe might become enough of a legend to have an effect on our lives. Well, it's not always that way. Like I said in the beginning, the links between people basically aren't that relevant in the grand scheme of things. Whether some household nearby is having steak or croquettes doesn't matter to me. When I put on my shoes, it doesn't matter to anybody whether I put the right one on first or the left. This much the average person can understand. But actually, in reality, this is the truth. The bonds between people are quite well defined. It's not just a matter of distance, of being far or near. For example, let's say person A's actions have some effect on me. Even then, person B's actions could have absolutely no consequence on my life. The reverse also holds true. Just because my actions affect person A, that doesn't always mean that they affect person B as well. Let's put it bluntly. If the bonds between people are like gears in a machine, the gear that represents me meshes with some people but is isolated from the others. There are some who would try arguing against this. Those people would bring up examples of gears in a clock. Each gear, indeed, only directly meshes with one or two others. However, if you rotate one gear, the one next to it is moved, which connects to the next one and the next. In the end, all the gears are moving. There is a logic behind this more than enough to convince the average person. Why is the argument convincing? The answer is simple. The relationships between people are ambiguous and can only be described conceptually. How the gears are connected and how their movements are chained together can't be used as a fundamental explanation, so it throws a wet blanket on that argument. So for the people who like that explanation, I'll use the example of a clock again to refute it. First of all, to say that this world is a singular clock would be wrong. That is, there isn't only one clock. There are just many clocks in the world, each counting their own time. If you think about it, the idea that this world is just one big clock is the height of arrogance. Even if you use the analogy of gears to explain human relationships, then you should be able to explain it using an analogy of multiple clocks unrelated to a single gear. Neighbors A and B. A is the gear in the same clock as me, so it's best to remain civil. B is a gear in a different clock, so he doesn't really matter to me at all. That's the kind of clear distinction I'm talking about. You want to say I'm being fallacious. Then let's change the analogy to something more familiar so you can understand. You've probably heard the phrase, a fire on the opposite shore sometime in your life, no? I don't think I have, personally. For example, if your neighbor's house was on fire, you'd probably try to help put it out, wouldn't you? It'd be awful if the fire spread and burned down your own house after all. But what if the fire was in a town on the opposite side of a river? Would you still go out of your way to help? You wouldn't, would you? Even though it would be wrong thing to do, there's no way the fire could spread to your own house. Even if it turned into a huge conflagration, there's no relation between the houses that will spread to you, yours and those that won't. With this basic example, you should be able to see the difference between deers that are and aren't related to your own. Having said that, there's still a lot to think about even without the river to divide it. After all, it's not a spatial problem like being on the other side of the river, is it? Interesting. Don't exactly know what was it called? Deers and Fire and the Taste of Honey. So I don't exactly know what this is about, but it probably is in reference to some truth. Or just about Hinamizawas helping each other. I agree with most of it. I do have the mentality of why should I care about people I will never interact with and never will meet in my life. I kind of had that, especially in high school. I remember giving that answer once when they were talking about something. It's a little edgy, but I agree with most of it, except like the last example about the two villages separated by a river. I think that one's kind of bad because that one's more I don't know, because it's a little more presumptuous without like really thinking about it's more like a personal basis, right? Like he says that you would help the neighbor put out the fire just because it's in risk of your house being burnt, but that's assuming that the person doesn't care about the neighbor at all, right? I don't know, that the last example I didn't really agree with, but with the beginning I agree with most of it. Like I don't really, like even if people in my city are like something bad's happening, it doesn't really affect me. I don't know, if something doesn't affect me, I usually won't care as much if I have no connection to them at all. So I agree with it mostly. The chick in the trunk. Huh? Who? The car had stopped, but he didn't know any more than that. Oh, it might be the grandson. For not only was he blindfolded, but locked in the trunk of the car. How could people become this powerless just by being robbed of their sight? He absolutely wouldn't have known this without experiencing it firsthand. He soon realized it was pointless to try and undo his bonds with the confines of the truck, quickly making him lightheaded. He had no choice but to let the smile torture dullest senses. That's why, when the car stopped and the unpleasant vibration ceased as the engine was killed, he couldn't help but delude himself that he was being set free, even though nothing had been resolved in reality. Of course, he was soon removed from that delusion. He strained his ears when he heard one of the men who had abducted him and an older man he was hearing for the first time strike up a conversation.
お疲れさんです。ヒナはトランクに。騒ぎすぎで多少衰弱してるようですが、ご命令通り傷一つつけちゃいません。
おう、手間はかけましたの。
Okay, not a voice I think we've heard. At least not one of the main cast. The trunk opened, letting in a blast of fresh, cool air. Even though up until now he had been thinking about getting out of that stuffy trunk, when it actually opened, he suddenly became uneasy. Enough so that he wished that the lid of the trunk would once again close, separating himself from them. Suddenly somebody stroked his head. Of course, since he was blindfolded, he couldn't tell if the hand was petting him or simply evaluating how easy it would be to remove his scalp. Unable to tell the difference, he could only freeze as he imagined the worst-case scenario.
つったらん、あいそうにの。震えとんね。
So they do have an accent.
おとなしくしばらく過ごすがよかろう。
The older man said kindly as he gently stroked the boy's head.
ほんに辛い思いしちゃろな。だがな、おんめのおじいちゃんは優しい人だんね。すぐに助けてくれるだろうの。
Having heard nothing but average standard dialect his whole life, the older man's distinct intonation left a deep impression on the boy. But he had no idea what he was saying. For your gramps to register as meaning your grandfather took a while to process. Eventually, the hand that was stroking his head loosened the blindfold.
目隠しはまずいっすよ。面が割れると後々まずいです。
ああ、そうかの。なんら、せめて猿靴はくらい外したらんな。
Gave us a visual.
これぎゃ、息もできんね。
叫ばれたらまずいです。こいつのことは俺た
たく、気の利かんやっちゃらな。本家にむごい仕打ちはせんやっちゃっとる。
They do kind of give off the punk vibe. Maybe they are Yakuza. I thought it was a little more organized, but maybe I'm wrong.
そこんとこ、肝に刻むんよ。
分かってます。手荒な真似はしませんよ。小僧がおとなしくしててくれる分にはね。
The man's hand prodded roughly and repeatedly at the boy's head. A rugged hand, unlike the affectionate one that had been stroking his head before. Just stay cooperative. If you struggle, there's no guarantee what will happen. That cliched threat was literally beaten into his head. Boom. Are we done? Okay. So stuff is happening. This is one to look back at. I don't think this one will be too important. That might be important. And we know the boys... Well, this could have happened anytime, so... Wow, that took 22 minutes. Well, late start, I guess. That's why I couldn't read it in the last session. It would have been too long. Okay, let's finally get into it. See what's up with Akasaka. Waking up in a cheap hotel in the city was by no means pleasant. I remembered even during the long camping trips we had during grade school, I wanted to get home quickly, counting the days left on my fingers. Waking up this morning, I was somehow reminded of that. Was it a need to be with my wife when she gave birth, a particular type of homesickness? As a productive member of society, as a public servant bound to fulfill his duties, it was pathetic indeed. Those negative emotions faded as I downed my breakfast, which was surprisingly not half bad. The meeting with the informant that Oishi had provided would be tonight. Until then, I couldn't just be lazing around. We're at the damn site. Or we're thinking about the damn site. I guess you can just teleport there. The Anidafuchi Defense Alliance was protesting the dam's construction in various ways. Introduced in this was a strategy for improving public relations, which could be categorized into two major forms, combative and peaceful. In regards to the former, as an attempt to keep law enforcement in check, they appealed to the public's sympathy by highlighting the oppressive and inhumane tactics of the police and the brutality of the riot squads. The later peaceful route stressed how precious the natural surroundings of Hinamizawa was, seeking people who opposed the dam on environmental grounds. As part of that, the village of Hinamizawa had invited celebrated zoologists and botanists, as well as environmental groups to advertise the nature surrounding the town. That's interesting, actually inviting outside forces to help them. Goes against what we know of them, kind of. According to the news, in recent years, there have been a group itself, Hinamizawa Nature Watching, setting up free sighting tours. Tomataki. What if that's his real occupation? He's the remnants of that. That would be a big bait. I would have liked to have taken advantage of the opportunity, but when I called the village administrative offices, they responded that it was too late to put an application for the tour, and they were still undecided as to when they'd be doing another one.
そうです
Unlucky.
か。次回の募集はありませんか。残念です。
あんた環境保護団体さんですか？それとも雑誌さんの人？
いえ、個人です。
個人？観光ですかね？
観光みたいなものです。美しい自然を写真に残すのが趣味なんで。
Yo, what if Atasaka was actually Tomotaki? I mean, that would be... Well, it would have made sense because Tomotaki died every time. But that would be the twist of the century.
雑誌でとても貴重な自然が残っていると読んだので、楽しみにしていたのですが。
I knew there was an article that had something like that written in it, but I hadn't actually read it. Was it this ad-libbed lie? Was it this ad-libbed lie not going to work? I hate that sentence. However, contrary to my expectations, the person I was speaking to laughed happily.
ならあんた検査来なさい。村はちょいと慌ただしいけど歓迎しますよ。
ぜひそうさせていただきます。ありがとうございます。
After you're playing a dangerous game. It's good, but you gotta be careful. These people are
あん
dangerous.
た明日は何ですか？お車？もしそうだったら先にナンバーを聞いておきますよ。台湾ないんですがね。
That was probably related to the checkpoints they'd set up on the way to the village. If I didn't give them my license plate number, I'd mostly be hindered in various ways. Most likely. I thought about using the car I had borrowed from the prefecture, but I was lost on whether it was okay to tell them that plate number. If the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance was behind this incident, there's no guarantee that they wouldn't be able to find out who I was. Excuse me. I had to play it safe, so I elected to refrain from using the car. We're
い
walking.
え、実は車ではないんです。
We're a hiker.
バスか何かがあれば、それで行きたいのですが。
I was joking. We're a busser.
バスならありますよ。もうすぐ廃線になっちまうそうですがね。そんでいらっしゃい。
It's a weird
沖
accent.
宮の駅から出ますよ。
It almost sounds a bit Chinese.
ありがとうございます。
To my ear, at least. I'm not an expert.
探してみることにします。
ほんと、いつ来ます？南沢さん初めて？初めての土地じゃいろいろとご不安でしょう。教えてくれりゃ誰か行かせていろいろご案内させますよ。
Well, we probably don't want a tour guide, but it might give us a safety barrier.
そんな。そこまでしていただくのは申し訳ないです。
気にせんでください。これも村の自然さ守るための PR なんですから。
Judging by what I saw at the checkpoint, the villagers were at the very least wary of outsiders. That's why, in order to move in and out of the village freely, I had to travel with somebody like Oishi or side with the dam protests. Having an interest in the natural environment surrounding the village tied into the peaceful type of PR that the village was using. I was a bit against having a watchdog attached to me, but that might actually work out in my favor. The entire village was fired up about the dam protests, so I might be lucky enough to hear some especially candid opinions from the residents. Given that, there's no real reason for me to refuse their offer.
本当によろしいのでしょうか。でしたら本当に助かります。
Let's go. We're in. After that, I was shown the bus schedule and directed to which bus I should get on. Somebody would come and meet me at the bus stop in the village. After showing me around a spot I take interest in, there is no doubt they'd bring me to somewhere like the Anti-Dam Information Center. Then, over a cup of tea, they try and indoctrinate me into accepting their principles and beliefs. Well, if that was their aim, there'd be a lot of freebies involved. The world is about give and take, after all. I couldn't be doing it in a suit. I pulled some plain clothes out of my travel case and changed into something more casual. After that, after calming down by watching some local television, I left the hotel and set out for Otonomiya Station. Yo, I want a sprite of this guy. It's bothering me. There's no way he's Tomotachi, but for some reason, some 200 IQ theory is coming to mind, but it's actually too dumb to say right now, so maybe later. The bus route that I was told would soon be discontinued certainly didn't look that way. There's more than enough trips on the schedule, and the number of passengers was by no means sparse. It was the main link to Otonomiya, the only town in the area. The types of passengers that stood out were older folk who didn't look like they could drive and housewives who didn't seem like they had a license. If the area was submerged at the bottom of a lake, it wouldn't matter if there was a bus route. That's why it was going to be discontinued in the unnatural scheme of things. I could catch a glimpse of the government's intent in cutting off their means of transportation to bully the villagers into emptying out sooner. It made sense. According to the documents, talks between the Ministry of Construction and the locals broke down quite early. The government decided from the start to take an aggressive stance in the matter. It was like the fairy tale with the north wind and the sun trying to get the traveler to remove his cloak. That's not the first time they referenced this. Well, I think they referenced it at least once in Umineko. I don't think they did in Higurashi. Even their bullying had meaning to it. The reason why the Onidofuchi defense lines resisted so violently was because the government was doing unseemly things like that. I was somebody who lived in Tokyo, so for a village or two out in the boonies like this to be submerged didn't seem like a big deal. But I guess for somebody actually living here, it would be a vitally huge problem. I mean, duh. This route will be discontinued at the end of this financial year. Thank you for your patronage up to this point. We look forward to your continued patronage on our other lines. Otonomiya Transportation. Gazing lazily at the notice of discontinued service posted inside the bus, I counted down the number of stops until the designated one. Along the way, we passed through the checkpoint without stopping. They knew what time the bus was coming, so they had opened up the barricade ahead of time. From here on out, it was enemy territory. My palms, I wonder if he's wearing his disguise. Maybe not, since people saw him with it before. My palms had at some point become coated in a thin film of sweat. I hurriedly pressed the stop request button as the designated stop was announced. For none of the numerous passengers to be getting off here meant that it must be quite a remote place. Did we at least bring a camera? Just, that would be smart. In actuality, the stop I got off was so abnormally run down that I could tell it was barely used. As soon as I stepped out, an intense atmosphere completely different than the interior of the bus assailed my body. Right now, Oishi or Hondaya weren't beside me. Yo, this looks familiar. Familiar background. That's right, at present I was alone in the middle of enemy territory. My adversaries probably thought I was just an ordinary tourist, but that was nothing more than a ruse. But if by some mistake my true identity was to be exposed, it brought back the terrifying words I heard at the prefectural office, that if somebody was attacked in Hinamizawa with a knife, there wouldn't be any evidence left behind. I didn't seem suspicious, did I? My clothing was currently casual. It was exactly the type of clothing a city slicker that viewed the countryside as a wholesome getaway would wear. Bro, camo, dude, right? Tomotachi vibes. I don't like it. A camera and a knapsack. Inside were various things needed for hiking. It was still only June, and maybe it was unusual, but the sun was shining down like it was already in the middle of summer. The fact that I didn't bring a hat must seem odd. Okay, he doesn't have the hat. Does Tomotachi have a hat? I think he does. Without the hat, he is not Tomotachi. Chase cleared. Stop thinking about it. It's dumb. I don't want to think about it. I hate that I'm thinking about it though. No, it wasn't something to be that concerned about. It's alright. I was just a normal tourist. Just normal. Was there anything suspicious about me? Asking that, I turned around to look at the bus that was departing. Oh. That actually got me. Good. I don't even know if that was a jump scare, but that did make me jump slightly. Asking that, I turned around to look at the bus that was departing. All the passengers by the window were staring down at me silently. It's a creepy image. That was from Anatatushi, right? They were staring right at me, as if they'd seen through my proud little outfit, just staring, looking down on me. Countless stares rained down like needles on me from the windows open to the air out of the bus. All that rained down were stares. None of them were saying a word, but all the more, their silent stares told me more than a million words could. Hurry up and go back to Tokyo, you outsider.
私は
There's no reason for me to speak. My quiet voice was drowned out by the sound of the engine. The bus, as if to torment me, set out slowly, and after doing more than enough to intimidate me, sped off. It was a good one. I'll give it to you, and it's deserved. A thin film of sweat began to rise from my entire body. They really liked that sentence, a thin film of sweat. I feel like I've said that like 3 or 4 times this session. According to the documents, it was a village that seemed wary of outsiders. Its population was small as well. If they saw an unfamiliar face, they would be quick to identify that face as an outsider. On top of that, nobody else had gotten off at this stop. It was a bus stop that normally just passed on by. Somebody actually getting off there was in no doubt had drawn some attention. But this wasn't a slip-up. They were the ones who directed me to get off at this stop. There was nothing to worry about. I knew that I was just nervous since this was my first undercover assignment. My more seasoned colleagues referred to us as the new generation that didn't know how to lose their cool. But that wasn't true at all. Deep breaths, buddy, honestly. There we go, let it all out. It's a stressful situation. If I was in your shoes, I would be trembling too. Probably worse off than you. I get pretty nervous. I mean, yeah. In scary situations, I'm pretty nervous. In order to calm my breathing down, I exhaled the unpleasant air residing in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't help but pray that my apprehensions would not apparitions, we don't have any ghost boys with us. Apprehensions would disappear like the white clouds of exhaust that spilled from the bus. There's a small shed there to serve as shelter if it rained, and it was there I decided to wait. Inside the shed, one wall was plastered with posters advertising the dam opposition efforts. It was like the heartfelt screams of the villagers were recorded on that wall. Inside that shelter, I felt an inexplicable pressure. Why would he feel pleasure? It wasn't like I had any real relation to the dam project, but it still made me feel hesitant about being inside there. That was just how filled with the force of denial that space was. And inside that uneasy space was a girl. Yo, it's Rita. She's so tiny, but her head looks giant. And that inside that shed, covered in words written in broad brushstrokes berating the policies regarding the dam and calling for action, there was a girl sitting there with a drowsy gaze and as if half asleep. The two images clashed so much that I could only stand there dumbfounded for a moment, trapped in such a surreal environment. I should have took a CG picture of that. Oh, whatever. I've been lazy on thumbnails anyways. If I stepped inside, who knew what kind of oafish noises I would accidentally make. I couldn't be disturbing this girl's slumber like that. Having thought this, I gave up on entering the shed. I was just a sleeping kid, so why was I so worked up about it? Finally, I realized. This girl, to us as a married couple, was the very image of our ideal child. Even after numerous examinations at the hospital, we didn't know for sure what our child's gender was. Whether we could tell if they were a boy or a girl was, in the end, dependent on whether or not they could get an image of their genitalia. There was, of course, no guarantee that it was a girl, but with things the way they were, the possibility was high. Even so, Yuki had been saying that the chances that it was a boy or a girl were even. But in my heart, I had already decided that our coming child was a girl. Since the day I decided that, until now, it was fun to imagine how our child would grow up that I couldn't help myself. Amongst those numerous imagined forms, the one that I thought to be the most ideal and materialized right in front of me. Of course, a little of it was due to circumstance. In my ideal image, her hair would be on the short side. The girl in front of me, though, had long hair. It was almost as if somebody had taken my ideal and made some small adjustments. It certainly wasn't something unpleasant. Even so, I felt like I was sullying her just by looking at her like that. She had an immaculate, no divine air about her. It's spacebar, not right click. It's pretty adorable. Giant head mini Rita. That's also, I think, even a better picture. Sleepy Rita. That girl with an angelic smile, with a yawn wide enough you could see her molars, woke up all of a sudden. You know what? Let's end it here. I think we're gonna get. I wonder if Rita's gonna be our tour guide. So I think we should save that, because if we start that, I'm probably not gonna be able to stop. Though again, maybe someone would cut in and tour us, but let's not take the risk. Well, it's not really a risk, but it's been 43 minutes, even though half of the time is dedicated to the hints, because there's 4 of them. Good session overall. We finally meet one of the club members. Obviously Rita was a given since she is the cover character, but it's good. She is adorable. Again, her head looks giant, but to be fair, I also have a very large head, so me and Rita together, at least this mini Rita, we're in the big head club. Represent. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. Again, this is posted every other day, so come back if you're interested in this. Come back the day after this was posted, and it will probably be up, unless it's maybe like a weekend or something, then maybe it won't be up. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye.